It's not uncommon to only give our pelvic floor any thought when it stops working the way that it should. But you shouldn't wait until you give birth to start thinking about how you can look after your pelvic floor and prepare and recover your pelvic floor. This is something you can do right now during your pregnancy on your yoga mat. So many of the women that I work with are told to do their Kegels, which in itself, yes, is being aware of this space in the body, which is good, and starting to activate this space in the body. But often what this leads to is a pelvic floor that is too tight, which can cause problems on its own. So in today's video, I want to show you how you can strengthen the pelvic floor, but also learn how to release the pelvic floor. And both of these things are important to make sure that your pelvic floor is nice and strong when you're pregnant and baby is bouncing on it, to make sure that your pelvic floor is able to be released so that baby can pass through the pelvic floor during birth, and so that you also build that strong mind-body connection with this part of your body so that recovery can become a lot faster. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Bettina. I'm a yoga teacher and a teacher trainer who specializes in fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum. If you want to learn more about teaching pregnancy yoga safely or practicing pregnancy yoga safely, there'll be a couple of free guides linked in the description box below. I think this part of the work, being a yoga teacher, is so important because you're not only helping your students feel better in their pregnant bodies, you're really helping to foster this mind-body connection. And this is where pelvic floor work and health starts, is being able to connect with this space in your body and know how to engage it and also release it properly. You don't have to be a physiotherapist to be able to do this. Yoga teachers can cue how to engage and release the pelvic floor. So while I do go into a lot more detail in my pregnancy yoga teacher training, let me give you the basics today in this video. So let's start with what the pelvic floor actually is. The pelvic floor is a group of muscles that hang from the pelvis and support the bladder, the bowel, and the uterus. During pregnancy, these muscles have to do a lot. They're carrying the extra weight of your baby and uterus. They're adjusting to hormonal changes. And eventually your baby is going to move through the pelvic floor during birth. Like I said earlier, a common misconception is that we just need to strengthen these muscles and that we need a really tight pelvic floor. This is incorrect. We need a pelvic floor that is both strong when it needs to be, but is also flexible and responsive to us when we need to be able to release this part of our body. Ultimately, we want a balance in our pelvic floor between that strength and also that flexibility. An overly weak pelvic floor can lead to incontinence, whereas an overly tight pelvic floor can lead to pelvic pain and even complications during birth. So what then do we do during pregnancy to make sure that we are creating this balance? The number one thing you can do is honestly just becoming aware of the pelvic floor, really fostering that awareness, which all pregnancy yoga classes are trying to help you build in the body. All types of yoga start with an awareness of the physical body. So this is why in a pregnancy yoga class, it's the perfect time to start bringing awareness to that pelvic floor. It's an often overlooked part of the body during yoga classes, but I think we really are doing a disservice to our students if we're forgetting to focus on this part of their body during pregnancy, because ultimately it will become a part of the body that women think about a lot during birth and also in recovery. The second tool you're going to use to help support the pelvic floor is the breath. Learning to breathe properly and learning how your diaphragm should expand with the breath and push down, and how the pelvic floor muscles should push down when you breathe in, is the first step in building that awareness of the pelvic floor. So we're going to use breath today, and I'll show you a few different practices that you can help to start becoming aware of the pelvic floor and then also start practicing engaging those pelvic floor muscles. The third tool that we're going to use is then movement. So we're starting to move through different yoga poses and notice the pelvic floor in these poses. Notice which poses naturally lend to engaging and which naturally make us want to release or allow us to release. And then becoming aware of the pelvic floor and using the breath to add movement to the pelvic floor and engagement of the pelvic floor in these different poses. So all work that we do with the pelvic floor starts with awareness. You can't notice when you're gripping too tight or notice when you're releasing or even know how to engage those muscles if you don't have any mind-body connection between these two spaces. And I want you to think of awareness of the pelvic floor as a continuum. So on one end, we have women who have no awareness of the pelvic floor at all. So if I was to say to them, I want you to gently engage and lift up those muscles, There's nothing there. And if that's you, that's okay. So women who are starting at this end of the continuum may need some counter pressure. So using a bolster or something to place pressure on this part of the body, even using the hand, so that you can really start to connect the mind and the body in this space by using physical sensation and touch. As we move along the continuum, we have some women who will perhaps just have a sensation of tightness or gripping, or even a lack of strength. Moving along that continuum, we'll have some women who, as we cue breath, can notice the pelvic floor releasing and engaging. And then moving further along the continuum, some women will be able to engage the pelvic floor muscles altogether, all the way up to being able to isolate different muscles of the pelvic floor. We want to start wherever you're at and build you up to a place where you have more control and strength in the space of your body, but also that ability to relax on cue, because that's so important. There are a whole range of different breath exercises that you can do to engage the pelvic floor. Where I like to start is just teaching my students how to breathe properly. If they're brand new to yoga, which a lot of women coming to pregnancy yoga are, they might come to your pregnancy yoga classes without any awareness of how to breathe fully, and they might still be breathing into more of the chest space. What we want to encourage them to do is breathe into the belly and the ribs and really fill out this space so that their diaphragm is working properly. When we breathe in, the diaphragm should press down and those pelvic floor muscles should also gently press down. When we breathe out, the diaphragm lifts and we may feel the pelvic floor gently lift as well. So to start with, just bringing one hand to the ribs and one hand to the low belly, we're just going to take a really deep breath in. And I want you to be conscious of these spaces expanding. So making sure that you feel into the side ribs, making sure that low belly fills. And then softening, low belly releases, ribs gently release in as well. And just getting really comfortable and feeling really good breathing like this. This can be a real repatterning. If we've been used to holding our belly in, gripping everything tight, creating this tension, which a lot of the women I work with come to have been told that during childhood or even in their teenage years to suck their belly in, then they're not breathing properly, using their diaphragm and belly properly. So this can be the first step, starting relearning how to breathe properly. Once you know how to breathe properly, it's time to start adding in some active engagement. So starting to notice, what is that connection like? Can I actively engage these muscles? And can I consciously relax these muscles? So when my students are first starting this, I like to give them some physical feedback. This is particularly important for those students who are right down the end of the continuum and are really just at the beginning of building that mind-body awareness with the pelvic floor. So sitting up on a bolster or straddling a bolster or a rolled blanket will work perfectly. This is going to give some gentle counter pressure on the pelvic floor so that you have something to lift away from. So again, bringing the hands to the ribs and to the low belly, taking a deep breath in. And just becoming conscious as when you breathe in, the ribs expand, the belly expands, and you'll feel some gentle pressure or just some awareness down there. Noticing these pelvic floor muscles gently widening and expanding as the breath fills into the space. And then as you exhale, noticing the belly gently draw in, the ribs gently draw in, and perhaps also noticing a gentle lifting of those pelvic floor muscles. Good. And then as we breathe in again, inhaling. So noticing the expanding and the widening of the pelvic floor muscles as the breath fills into this space. And then as you exhale, I want you to gently engage those muscles, so lifting in and up. So you might be imagining the muscles of the vagina engaging and lifting up. You might be also able to contract the muscles around the urethra and the anus as well, and lifting in and up with all of those muscles together. And then as you breathe in again, just let them soften and relax, back down into the counter pressure. And then exhale and gently engage them in and up. And we're just going to do this for a few breaths. You want to get good at this with the counter pressure, so just that little bit of extra physical feedback before you take it away and start practicing without it. So you can practice in any position. You could come to a kneeling position, you could come to A crossed leg position. You could even put your hands in this space so that you've still got that little bit of physical feedback. And so from here, once we feel confident with our mind-body awareness, we're going to move into doing these same practices, this mindful engagement and release, in different physical poses, because it's going to feel different when we move our body. So first we're going to move into cat-cow pose, and our focus here is to release tension. So the movement of rocking the hips helps to release tension in the pelvic floor, and we're also going to notice that subtle engagement as we move the breath. So we're not going to actively contract and release at the start, we're just going to notice. So with the hands under the shoulders, the knees under the hips, and the tops of the feet pressing into the floor, I want you to let the belly hang. So let it hang out. We're not doing that gripping tight thing that we've been taught to do. As you inhale, I want you to lift the tail and lift the head. And just notice that as you tuck the tailbone under, it's like a widening of the pelvic floor as you do that. So inhale, lift the tail, lift the head. And then exhale, gently round the spine, tuck the tailbone under, and notice a gentle engagement, a lifting in and up of the pelvic floor. Inhale, you can exaggerate this movement now. So inhale, noticing the widening of the pelvic floor. And then as you exhale, tucking the tailbone under, I want you to engage those muscles, lifting them in and up. So starting to add that active movement here. One more time, inhale, lift the tail, lift the head. And then exhale, round the spine, engage through the pelvic floor. Good. The next pose that we're coming to is our Malasana. So you can actively practice Malasana by bringing the heels underneath the hips, settling yourself into them, and then bringing the elbows into the inside of the thighs. I often find my pregnant yoga students prefer to practice up on a bolster. This gives us that stability and allows us to focus on the pelvic floor without sort of noticing all the other stuff that's going on, all the other stretching and strengthening that's happening in the hips. This position is quite an open position, so our awareness is automatically brought to this space. So to start with, let's just come back to that breath, filling the belly, noticing the pelvic floor expand and widen. And then as you exhale, I want you to notice the belly softening and see if you can lift those muscles in and up. Inhale, let the belly expand, soften through the pelvic floor. And then exhale, engage those muscles in and up. So you can add a visualization to this if this is helpful, noticing or trying to grip something with the muscles of the vagina. So drawing in this space. For some women that helps, for other women that just turns them off. So it's entirely up to you. I always like to just think of those muscles like a hammock, and I'm trying to lift them in and up. The next pose that we're going to move to is a goddess pose. So one that I found super confronting in postpartum because this part of my body still felt quite weak. So if you are watching this video early postpartum, you can reduce the intensity of this by bringing a chair underneath the hips and taking a seat in this wide leg straddle rather than asking the leg muscles to do all of the work. This pose is so great for the pelvic floor because it is so open. So you are going to notice more that when you inhale, you can let these muscles drop. And when you exhale, there is a big engagement required to lift those muscles in and up. You can then also challenge the pelvic floor. So inhale, release. Exhale, engage. And then see if you can do a few little pulses while keeping the pelvic floor engaged. Then release, inhale. And then exhale, engage and pulse. So really starting to add movement to challenge our pelvic floor to keep that engagement and then release on cue. So the next one I want you to practice is our bridge pose. So as you inhale, we're just going to stay where we are with the palms pressing into the mat, the feet flat on the floor. Notice the pelvic floor expand and soften. And then as you exhale, we're going to press into the feet, roll the spine up as we engage the pelvic floor in and up. Hold. Just going to take a breath here, keeping the pelvic floor engaged. Release it out. Keep engaging. And then as you inhale again, I want you to soften the pelvic floor, soften the hips back down to the ground. And again, inhale, release and expand. As you exhale, engage the pelvic floor, so feel like those muscles are gripping in and up as the glutes also turn on to lift the hips high. Good. And then exhale, slowly roll back down. Another one to bring awareness to the pelvic floor is our happy baby, because everything's open in this pose. Bring the fingers around the big toe, or you can hold onto the outside of the feet, or if you can't quite reach, the calves are also great. Gently draw the knees down towards the armpits. And all I'm going to get you to do here is just breathe. So breathing in, filling the belly. Notice a gentle expansion of the pelvic floor. And then as you exhale and soften, notice a gentle engagement, lifting in and up. And again, breathing in. A gentle widening and expansion. And breathing out, gently engaging, lifting in and up. Good. One last pose. Bring the soles of the feet together. Let the knees fall out to the side. Our Supta Baddha Konasana, which for me feels comfortable like this because I'm not pregnant, but during pregnancy, I would always practice this one up on a bolster, because once baby gets nice and big, our lungs are compressed and lying flat on the ground doesn't feel so great. So the reason that I encourage students to practice this pose to help bring awareness and that focus on releasing the pelvic floor is because our nervous system and our ability to release are connected. So if we are stressed, which for some women in a malasana pose, so in this position, even with the bolster underneath them, can feel quite stressful. We're up, we're active, our legs and our hips are being asked to do a lot. Whereas in this position, I want us to make it as comfortable as possible so that we can really let go, and from this safe, grounded position, hopefully also release the pelvic floor as well. So that might mean you need cushions underneath the knees, because if you're not as flexible as me, opening this wide might feel confronting. So I want you to make yourself really comfortable. Safety and relaxing is key here. So from a really grounded and relaxed position, we're just going to do those same breath exercises, that same awareness, that same noticing of the pelvic floor, but in this position where there's nothing else to do. Nothing else is being asked of us. So breathing in, noticing the pelvic floor expand and widen, and then exhaling, either just noticing the pelvic floor lifting in and up, or perhaps consciously lifting in and up. Inhale as you release. Exhale as you gently engage, or just notice a gentle lifting, a natural drawing in as the breath releases from the body. And then just keep this pattern of breath going. Breathing slowly and gently, and just keeping your mind conscious of this part of the body. Good. So these very simple movements can be done throughout your entire pregnancy. The whole practice might only take you 10 minutes max. And of course, you can always do these breath awareness practices throughout the rest of your life as well. You might be sitting at your desk, you might be in your car driving to work, and you can do those breath practices. Bring your awareness to the pelvic floor. No one else will even know you're doing it, but you're going to be supporting this part of your body that is so important during pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, and making sure the pelvic floor is both strong and flexible. Whether you're a pregnancy yoga teacher or you're expecting a baby yourself, this is the video that you're going to want to watch next.